Leader One is back with another flight simulator, and this time it's Tomcat, the F-14 fighter simulator for your Atari 7800. This is actually a mislabeled copy. It's not for the 2600, it's for the 7800. So let's take this mislabeled 7800 version, pop it in my Atari 7800 Pro system, and see how it holds up today. Let's go to the game. Tomcat, the F-14 fighter simulator, was published by Absolute and carries a copyright year of 1989, 1 year after the 2600 version came out and the same year that the Sega Genesis came out. Although the game is based on Dan Kitchen's work from the 2600 version, the 7800 version was headed up by Tony Chung Lau, who also worked on the fun Atari 7800 port of Ikari Warriors, which I reviewed in episode 243. Since this version shares a lot in common with the 2600 version, you may notice that I recycle some of my remarks from the previous episode, but hey, that's gotta be good for the interweb environment, right? Tomcat F-14 Fighter is a flight simulator comprised of several one-on-one dogfights for one player only and only has one standard mode of difficulty. The manual copies the background of the 2600 version, putting you in the seat of a high-tech F-14 Tomcat ready to take on your enemies during both day and night. You start the game on the deck of the USS Enterprise, whose continuing mission is to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has gone before. And if you caught the difference in that reference from the one I did in the last episode, give yourself 1,701 points. Once you are fueled up, you can take off by holding the button down and pressing up on the joystick until the engine percentage reaches 216%, after which you will be catapulted off and need to hold down on the joystick to raise your altitude and avoid crashing into the water, which would end your game very early since you only get a single life. When in the air, moving the joystick left and right moves you likewise. Up dives down and down climbs up. To enter into dogfights, you must reach an altitude of 5,000. The biggest difference in the 7800 version involves the buttons on the 7800 joystick. In the 7800 version, the left button fires your selected weapon. The select button on the system itself scrolls through your different displays on your computer. The left difficulty switch raises and lowers your landing gear, and the right difficulty switch raises or lowers your resting hook. When you take off, the landing gear is lowered and the resting hook is raised in whatever position your difficulty switches are at that time. You can also tell the position of the landing gear by looking at the red lever on the bottom left and the position of the resting hook by looking at the red lever on the bottom right. When you are on the Stats 1 screen while holding the right button down, you can press up on the joystick to increase your speed and down to decrease your speed. To save fuel after you take off, the manual recommends lowering your speed to under 100%. On the Threat menu screen, you could switch your weapons and turn on the ECM or electronic countermeasures, which is recommended you do after you take off. You start armed with AIM-57 missiles, which are good for long-range attacks. You also have AIM-9 missiles, which are heat-seeking sidewinders that are best used when you are on your opponent's tail, and AIM-7 Sparrow infrared missiles, which are best used when you can see your opponent. You start the game with 15 of each missile type and are automatically rearmed with another missile type when you run out of one. You can also select your M61 machine gun, which has 675 rounds. This is only effective at close range, and if you hold down the firing button too long, a red light will appear on your instrument panel indicating you are in danger of overheating your guns. If the light turns bright red, your guns will have overheated and you will have to wait for them to cool off. On the threat screen, which you can select at any time, but it also appears whenever an enemy is near automatically, if you press the reset button on the system, you can use your joystick to pick either your missiles, your ECM, or machine gun and press the right button to either select a different type of missile, turn on or off your ECM, or switch to your machine guns. So in this version, you can still fire while in the menu screen. When the enemy is near on your computer display, you will see a screen that shows you where the bogey is, as you use the joystick to maneuver to try to get him in front of you. As you close in, you can see a small dot in the distance that will grow larger as he gets closer. When you have a missile armed, the crosshair will turn red for a lock, but you have to fire quickly as the lock can easily be lost. Once a missile is fired, you cannot fire another one or switch to your machine guns until the missile either hits or passes the target. It takes one missile shot to destroy a bogey, or about 3 seconds worth of machine gun fire. If the enemy gets behind you and fires a missile, a graph will appear showing you the missile in relation to you if your ECMs are turned on. To shake a missile off, you basically need to maneuver all over the place. When you are running low on fuel or ammo, it will turn night and you will need to land. This is the toughest part of the game. When you get the call to land, you need to go to the Stats 2 screen and maneuver your fighter so that the compass heading, or CHDG, is between 30 and 40 degrees. Then you need to go to your landing screen, lower your landing gear and a resting hook, reduce your thrust to 30%, and drop your altitude below 2,000. Once you get close enough, you will see your aircraft carrier in the distance and a landing display. Here you need to keep the dot in the middle of the horizontal indicator at the bottom and try to fly in between an altitude of 70 to 80 feet according to the manual, which is interesting because in the manual for the 2600 version, they give you a bigger window of 60 to 80 feet. Once you are over the deck, you will hear a warning sound telling you to press down to land. If you land successfully, you will need to turn off your engines and get ready to take off for a night mission. If your landing fails for any reason, including forgetting to lower your landing gear or resting hook, not being centered, being too high or too low, or going in too fast, you will explode, ending your game. The game also ends if you crash into the ocean, are shot down by an enemy missile, or if you run out of gas, which will lead into a crash into the ocean. If you happen to land again after the all-night mission, you will start another day mission. Whenever you land, or if your game ends, you will get a rank from 0 to 9. The manual lists what the rankings are, starting at civilian and topping out at Top Gun graduate. It seems that the more enemies you shoot down with the least amount of missiles used leads to a higher ranking. If you're good with the machine gun, it can help you get a better ranking since it doesn't count as a missile shot. Also, it's possible to lower your rank in between landings due to poor performance. Graphically speaking, I think the graphics are a nice upgrade over the 2600 version, although some of the views of the enemy fighters could have been better. Sound and music-wise, this seems to be an exact copy of the 2600 version, which makes sense since the vast majority of 7800 games use 2600 sounds. There are not a lot of sounds in the game, but I think that the engine sound fits well, and I even like how you can hear the breaking of the sound barrier once you hit 1.0 Mach speed after taking off. Family-friendly wise, this is a pretty tame game that I would expect would get an E for everyone rating if released today, although the game may be too complex for younger gamers. At the time I researched on eBay, including shipping, there was only one copy that sold recently, loose, for $12. So what do I think of Tomcat, the F-14 fighter simulator on the 7800? This is basically the same as the 2600 version with better graphics and the ability to use a second button. It's a complicated game with a learning curve, but I really enjoyed it. I think the game has great atmosphere, listening to the hum of your engine, not knowing when the next enemy is going to pop up, and also having to deal with the pressure of evading missiles and landing on the aircraft carrier, both of which can be very tough, and at times felt tougher than the 2600 version, although that just may have been how my game went this time around. I do wish landing was a little bit easier, and if you're able to land, good job, you deserve a patch. Too bad Absolute didn't make any, and this game isn't for everybody, but if you like flight simulators, I recommend this to Atari 7800 owners. And for me personally, I also think that this plays better than Ace of Aces, another flight simulator on the Atari 7800, even though that one has more to do in the game. But of course, that might just be my personal preference. So where am I going to rank Tomcat? Pretty high. I'm looking in the top 12. And I like Donkey Kong Jr. more at 11, but I do like this better than Desert Falcon at 12. So out of the 57 games I've now ranked on the Atari 7800, Tomcat F-14 is flying into the 12th position. Tomcat may not be for everybody, but if you like flight sims, you might just like it. So what do you think of the game? Whether you agree or disagree with me, feel free to let me know in the comments below. Also, feel free to click the like and subscribe buttons and follow me both on the Facebook or the Twitter. I'm also a member of the Retro Junkies Network. At this time, I'd like to thank Richard for supporting the show through Patreon. Thank you, Richard. If you appreciate the work I do, please consider joining the League of Extraordinary Patreon Supporters by signing up at patreon.com/NoSwearGamer. Thank you for giving me a little part of your day, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the next episode of the No Swear Gamer. Take care, and don't forget to put your landing gear down when landing.